Welcome to a review session for technical electives and also a little bit more information about the AMP. I know we're in ECE, so you know about AMPS, but this one stands for the Accelerated Master's Program. If you're interested in that, we'll talk about that at the second half. But today, the main part, we'll be talking about technical electives, and you can think about those somewhat relative to the core classes that you've probably already taken as a freshman, sophomore, and junior here in the department. And I've gridded those here to indicate that some fall into the computer engineering or computer-related category. That's the 175, the 275, 274A, and 372A. Those form a lot of the prerequisite material for subsequent or technical elective coursework. The electronics and the biomedical type classes, I'm just classifying as maybe following on from 351C, which is an electronics class. I'm assuming some of you are taking that now. Then there are classes that I will classify or group into signals and systems classes, and those follow from the linear circuits class, 320A, and the Introduction to Communications class, which is 340A. Those serve as prerequisites for subsequent classes. And then if you're in computer engineering, you maybe didn't take 381A as a required course, but you can take that as a technical elective. But it now will form a prerequisite for a lot of the classes that are in the electromagnetics and optics subdiscipline or category within electrical and computer engineering. That's why I'm showing you this box. Now we can play Foursquare. Now you know what's where in terms of prerequisites, and what you can do is you can start to look at this and maybe see some commonality in those courses. As far as computer, those are in the 70s. 75, 74, 72. So the computer engineering classes in general, if you're just looking at a long list of ECE classes, you might find those in the 60s and the 70s. So you'll have to grow your hair long, no. But the 60s and 70s are computer engineering courses. Electronics, and we've run out of numbers, so this doesn't completely follow true to form, but if you see 50s courses, then that might have been associated with electronics. Signals and systems, 20s, 30s, and 40s. So we're going back in time, further back in time. Well, no. But in the 20s, 30s, and 40s numbers, those are the digital signal, or those are the signal processing, communications, and controls type classes. And then in the 80s, we have electromagnetics and optics. And that's the sort of the organization. And this is still in the planning stages as far as what might happen, but it's getting closer to being firmed up as far as what might be available to you. So keep on your toes as you're signing up for technical electives. But now I'm going to go into for what we're thinking of offering in the computer area in the fall of 2016. And you'll notice that in parentheses after 369A and 373, I have EE. You have to be in the electrical engineering option to take those. They're required if you're in the computer option, so they're not a technical elective. But if you want to have a very broad foundation in electrical and computer engineering, you might take some of these core classes as technical electives. So if you're an EE, if you're in the electrical engineering option, and you want a broader breadth of computer, you might take computer architecture, which is 369A, or object-oriented programming, which is 373. And I'm going to try to make these notes available to you, and I'll post those on my website. And if you really need something to put you to sleep at night, I'll have the audio and the video capture of this. Some other classes that are related to the computer area, and I also have SS after those. These are sort of signals and systems also, so you could sort of say that these are in two different classes of sub-areas within electrical and computer engineering. Numerical modeling, that follows smoothly maybe from ECE 330A, if you liked 330A as an undergrad. As a junior is when you typically take that. Then you might take numerical modeling, which is 411. And I've listed the 511s, telling you that those, if you were in the accelerated master's program, you would take the 500 version. You would take the graduate level version. That's why I'm just showing you that, oh, you could actually take this for both undergraduate and graduate credit, and you can, what we call, double dip. You can basically use it for your undergraduate degree and your graduate degree if you're doing the accelerated master's, which is why I'm giving you these 400, 500 slash symbols. You now know that it's not just an undergraduate class. You could actually take the graduate level class if you wanted to. Another class that's in the computer and signals and systems area is complexity. And maybe what I can do, does everyone know how to find what's available on the web? I'm guessing. Okay, so if you go to Arizona's website and click on menu and current student, etc., you can find what's listed. And if you did that, we can look at the cacti. No, we'll go, you would then come up with something like this. And now if you wanted to know, whoa, what 421 had, you can now find its syllabus. What? Oh, it must have timed out. I did that to save. And you know the trick sometimes to, if a class is closed, it's not showing because it's full, and you want to go beg to be let in, and you want to know if it's actually there, you might uncheck that box and then tell them that you are now wanting to. See, we have a lot of classes, over 250. I thought I was connected. And now you can actually see the course description for that class if you wanted to. And some course descriptions contain more information than others, but this one gives you a good idea about what you might be seeing. Whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. I was going to say that looks like the wrong class. Thought I clicked on 421. Did I click on 411? Obviously. Wake me up. I've already fallen asleep and I'm just doing this lecture. Wow, that's pretty bad. It's been a long day. How's... Sure. I won't repeat that comment, but something about doing this in my sleep, right? So now you can see the complexity description if you were interested in that. If we go back now to the computer classes that you might be interested in, there's a follow-on to digital logic, which is the 474A. That's computer-aided logic. And then there's a computer networking class that's 478. If we move on to the electronics and biomedical area, the 50s, which obviously we're dipping down into the 40s on this one with semiconductor processing. Now in semiconductor processing with 446, you can actually understand or learn how to do doping and how to grow some of these So you can learn how this might happen physically, how to create some of these devices that you've now been looking at more abstractly or from a more circuits or a theoretical perspective. Now you can actually understand a little bit better how they might be built. The device electronics, ECE 352, that's available as a technical elective course for the computer engineering option. Obviously, it's required if you're an electrical engineering option. But that one now goes into the solid state physics behind some of these devices that you've been playing with in 351C, for example. Then we get into the 80s, which are electromagnetics and optics. Again, if you're in the computer engineering area and you want to know how your cell phone communicates or talks with others, maybe you want to learn a little bit more about electromagnetics, you would learn some of that in 381A. If you're in electrical engineering, that's required, and so that won't be considered a technical elective. But here, this is electromagnetics and optics, so you can see that we have 434, which is electrical and optical properties of materials. Again, this is related to 352 a little bit, but now you're looking at the optical properties in addition to the electrical properties of these particular systems. Then if you want to learn a little bit about optics, you have that option in 459, which is Fundamentals of Optics for Electrical Engineers. It's designed for an electrical engineer to learn about optics. And another class in the 80s, and this is actually a part of a two-course sequence, is 486. That's microwave engineering, and it's with passive circuits. So now if you want to do circuit design at the microwave frequency realm or in that particular area, this is the class, and this would be the first semester of a two-semester sequence if you wanted to keep going. And so if you want to get into the active devices where you're building amplifiers and other devices that are now used in all of our electronics with the microwave frequency range, then you'll want to take 486 in the fall and take 488 in the spring. But now I'm just talking about the fall classes, but I'm trying to get you to think 1 year at a time. Signals and systems in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, we have optical communication systems, which would follow maybe somewhat naturally from 340A, Introduction to Communications. And then there's 441A, which is Automatic Control Systems. Now I know you're, and this is what I said, I'll try to post those on my website, these notes and the video if you want to go back and look at these. If you're interested in looking at a grid, planning your sleep schedule, since I've been talking a lot about sleep, here are when some of those classes, I think, are scheduled to occur. So you can see that hopefully the reason this is laid out the way it is so we don't have too much overlap, but you can see that the 10 o'clock hour is fairly congested, but some of that congestion is a result of having junior level courses in with some of the senior level courses. But we try to spread it out so that you can take or have available to take most of these courses if you want. That's the idea. So if you're a morning person, you can person in the afternoon, 8 to 74 or the 474, that's a good question. 74A and 369A at the same time? You probably can, since I don't think 369 is a prerequisite for 474. But you would want to talk to the instructor, but you can go to the catalog descriptions and find 474. I hope it's here, but so I think it's just 274 and 275 for the requirements. Advanced standing, which I'm hoping you have, and then 274 and 275. Oh, but you were saying because they're on top of each other, so now you're waking me up again. So yes, it's designed that probably you've had 369 as a junior, and now you're following that with 474. So neither of those are planned to be offered in the spring. So the question was, are those offered in the spring? Right now, not. So you might have to between and your question. Oh, I will think. Spring 2017 is a year. It's about as far as we moved. .462 computing in the fall, you could now take 462 in the spring. So if you really wanted to get into computer architecture, you could do that. The other one that we are moving that traditionally or in the last few semesters or years has been in the fall is the artificial intelligence class, the AI class. We're now transitioning that into the spring. This will try to more uniformly distribute the computer engineering classes between the fall and the spring semesters. In years past, they were all packed into the fall, and then you couldn't hardly take them all. So I hope this works a little bit better. So in the spring, these are what we're planning for. This is spring of 2017. So this is not really what's happening now. Those classes are not being taught this semester, but they will be taught in a year. We're changing it up a little bit. In terms of the 80s, computer is 2. Basically a biomedical raising somebody's physical, not today. Based on our physiological parameters, right? Yeah, good. So you'll learn a little bit about, well, no, maybe I'm overselling 417, 517, but you'll learn how to take some of those measurements. I'm not sure that you draw blood in that class. Maybe you do if you fall down in the lab, but hopefully you'll be safe in the lab. Whoa! All right, somebody's wanting to finish. In the 80s and in These classes, I believe, are being taught this semester, except 488 was not taught. 488, if you're remembering, that's the second semester of microwave circuit design, but now that's with active devices. And 484 is the antenna, so you can start to learn all about your cell phone or the interior of your cell phone with antennas and the other device in the system. A little bit more to the 420. We have the spring digital, so you have to have already taken in. We're trying to teach analog, which is 441A. And we did in the past, we forced students to take 441A before they stepped into 442, but we're trying to teach it so that it's not required. So if somebody wakes up in October and they go, oh, I wanted to take 442, you still can if you didn't take 441A. But if you're planning ahead and you want control, you can take them both. I think that completes, and I'm not going to show you a grid of times for the spring because now I've been tasked with spreading that out a little bit. This spring, most of those are on Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday are not very populated with classes, and so just be patient and we'll try to get that put together, but at least you know what to maybe take in terms of courses. As far as planning your day, you'll have to wait a little bit. 1 year, not we will turn into amps, or the assembly you will be able to open for juniors and CPA of 3 of the GRE requirement, so that's the grad. You don't have to take that. That saves you a little bit more than that now. And then you can apply if you've accumulated 75 units. You can start taking these classes that will allow you to double dip once you've reached 90 units. So once you become a senior, now you can start taking these classes, and you can take any 500 level class. You can take up to 12 units that will count both towards your bachelor's and your master's. It takes you 30 units, or basically 10 classes, to complete a master's. If you've now already taken 4 as an undergrad, which is difficult, but it can be done, then you simply have 6 to take in your next year of your graduate education, and you could take 3 and 3, and now within 5 years, if you were on the 4-year plan, you would have a master's degree in addition to a bachelor's degree. So the question just made my system crash for some reason. But I think the designation or the 5, Auxiliary Master's program, and if it looks even prior to that designation. But you do have to have 90 plus units by the time that you start taking those classes. Did that answer your question? So it really shouldn't matter, but it's probably cleaner to just enroll in the 500 level class from the get-go, if you can. Other questions? I will give, yes?
So for the 12 credits, is that over the year, the senior year, or is that for a semester?
So the question is, do I have to take these 12 units in one semester? No. You can actually, depending on where you're at in your curriculum, you could possibly start taking these classes as a second semester junior in your program, but you're officially a senior in the university. So you would have 3 semesters potentially to take these 12 units, which would be even better for you. But the plan, the original idea was units total in each. You don't have to 12. One, and that's the other thing, you don't have to say that you're in your first year of your year, you bump your GPA and you're still that much further. That make you don't always take advantage. You can't go back and say, oh, can I just convert those to 500? No. You have to do it at the time. Other questions on the Accelerated Masters or classes? Here's another way of looking at, you guys may not have access to this kind of a sheet. Have you seen this sheet before? So this is something that I sort of pass around internal, and the thing I don't like about it is it doesn't label when it is. So this is actually planned for the fall. And I generated this, what's today, the 21st? I think this was generated on Saturday. But it gives you the instructors that have been planned, and you can see I've already changed it since Saturday. That no, they've been, but for you, and this gives you then some for the semester. One is typically only offered in the fall, and will next spring. Have the ability to take 2 non-ECE technical electives, 2 courses outside. And there are some courses in other departments that are similar to ours. There is a controls class that's similar to 441 that's maybe taught in the mechanical engineering. And you could possibly, but it's usually quite subscribed or heavily committed from there, but you could possibly take that, and it may be offered in the spring. But you can't have credit for both, obviously, if they're that close. So you wouldn't want to take 441 A here in ECE and then take the equivalent mechanical engineering class for automatic control. You can also request, you can petition to have, but typically what it is, it's any engineering class that's at the 400, maybe even the 300 level, computer available as your CE elective. I don't need to keep you in the storm, isn't it? No wonder. And took 486 in the, then they should be able to take 588 in the spring. It's just that they maybe didn't do the graduate level work at the 86 in the 486 class if it was a project or some additional work. So they didn't get the 488, or I'm sorry, the 486, but they should have the background to be successful in 488, 588, and taking the 588 version. Again, if you don't get into the Accelerated Master's program before the spring, that's okay. You can still take 500 level classes in the spring. And they don't have to be 400/500 classes. You can take pure 500 level classes that will count towards your undergraduate and graduate. So if you wanted to take, for example, something like this, I don't know if you would want to, but you could maybe take a 501B. That's not a, doesn't have a 400 credit. And obviously, you wouldn't be able to take that again and count towards your graduate degree. Nice nature of the program. We have the thesis option, which is a coursework masters, and that's 10 classes of 3 units each, so it's 30 units. The thesis is you would have to have the essentially the backing of a faculty member. A faculty member and you would have to work together on a thesis. That's then 6 units, and then you would have 8 units plus, I'm sorry, 8 classes for 24 units plus 6 units of thesis to get you up to the 30 units. So you would have to decide as an individual, do I want to do the thesis or the non-thesis? If you select thesis, you need to have a faculty member that you can work with to come up with a thesis idea and writing of that thesis document. And you would obviously have to defend that thesis. But the defense of a thesis is, you know, you should have the background, the knowledge. You're now the expert in that particular domain. You should be very comfortable defending what you've written up in that thesis document. Masters, dissertation. So you do have that option as a student. Yes, Steve. Actually, jump over the masters, or it's coursework not awarded a master's. You go from and that usually requires that your scores, your GPA, are stronger than going from getting into the masters. Yes. So the question is, what's this thesis, sort of, or how does it count? You take basically 2 3-unit blocks of thesis credit. So you get credit like a class, but it isn't a class. It's just on your transcript as research or thesis units, and you have 6 units of those. And you would work with a faculty member in, let's say, their research group and come up with this idea or concept for defense. Yes.
Would there be any extra cost for this program?
For the graduate classes, and as it instead than the graduate tuition. So it would be less costly for your 5th year, unless the tuition really goes up, which I'm hearing it is going up, or might. But it's the same price, essentially, to get that 5th year for your master's. You're free to go if you have questions. I will stop the recording. We can talk offline or after the fact. I hope this was recorded. Well, maybe